my agent told me I was banned from tanning. Oh my gosh, like I'm late. And I was like, wait, no, I'm early. I think I've always wanted to be proud to be Japanese, but growing up overseas, sometimes it was difficult.
What's your name?
My name is Riho Tsuji.
And where are you from?
I'm born and raised in New York City, but I'm Japanese by blood, and I live in Tokyo now.
So you're Japanese American.
Yes,
Which is the better city, New York or Tokyo?
I get asked this question all the time, and it's hard. But look, in terms of infrastructure and quality of life, I have to say Tokyo wins. You know, it's clean, the trains come on time. Even if the train is late, they announce it and they apologize. You can eat and drink for a very affordable price here, and you get like both highbrow, lowbrow. But on the flip side, New York has so much life. Everybody is free to be whoever they want to be. There's so much culture. There's so much depth to the different cultures there. There's so much diversity. And so, you know, both cities have their pros and cons, and I love both cities very much. I would say physically, Tokyo is a better city, but I would say emotionally, New York is a better city.
Interesting.
Hot take, I don't know.
For you, it's like America is the home country, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Like New York City is home for me. And I was born there, I grew up there. So I definitely identify more, I think, as, I don't want to say American, but as a New Yorker than I do as Japanese.
Okay. How is it like to grow up in New York City as a Japanese person?
Well, I think I was very lucky because New York is so diverse. So unlike most other, you know, places maybe in America, there's way more diversity. So you grow up around a lot of different cultures, but still, there weren't so many Japanese people around me. So I always got, you know, ni hao or like I was always told ni hao on the street, and I was like, I'm Japanese. But yeah, it was not so bad. I think I think Japanese people are very liked overseas, and so a lot of times when I said I was Japanese by blood, people were like, oh, that's so cool, like I love Japan.
So I'm just curious, when you got talked like ni hao in New York City, like growing up, did you see it as racism?
Yeah, I did. I didn't like it very much, and I was not very polite to the people who said that to me. But yeah, I think, you know, there's like Asian, and you're like, well, there's so many different types of Asian. So I didn't love it, no.
Is there any memorable moment that you still maybe remember about you growing up in New York City, maybe bad experience or good experience being Japanese person?
Ooh. I think in terms of good experiences, I was very lucky because, you know, like culturally, Japan, in pop culture especially, people love, you know, a lot of Japanese products and stuff like that. I would say bad experiences, when the big earthquake happened in 2011, there were definitely some people who would allude to World War II or sort of bring up the past and say some very, very awful things about Japanese people, and that was really disappointing to see. You know, things like, you deserve this because of Pearl Harbor, and it's like, you know, crazy stuff like that. So that was definitely not nice and unfortunate, but for the most part, I was lucky. Besides like the ni hao, and I think as an Asian woman, it's very easy to be fetishized in the West. So I definitely had a lot of like really uncomfortable sexual comments made towards me because I'm a Japanese woman, and, you know, like sometimes it's seen as exotic, or yeah, people would say some really not appropriate things to me.
All right, wow. Interesting.
Like, they'd be like, are you into like tentacle? And I'm like, what the fuck is that? You know? like things like that.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm like, katto.
So you're Japanese American. You grew up in America. How do you feel being in Japan? I mean, you pretty much know the language, but culturally related. How close do you feel to Tokyo or to Japan?
I think In the beginning and for my whole life, I felt very far from Japan because I would only come once every few years to visit my grandparents. But even when I did, it was very broken conversations that I could have with them. So moving here now, I feel it's given me a really beautiful opportunity to, it sounds really corny, but to like reconnect with my roots and to connect with the family that I still have left here. And I think that the more time that I spend here, the more that I really appreciate the Japanese side of me. I think I've always wanted to be proud to be Japanese, but growing up overseas, sometimes it was difficult to be proud to be different or to, be proud to not be super American. But now that I'm here, I feel super grateful to be Japanese, and I'm finding a lot of beauty in that. So it's been a really healing process, actually.
I'm just curious, what are the Japanese sides of you and what are the American sides of you? Would you describe?
Ooh, okay. I think that I always tell people that I was born and raised in the States, but I was raised with Japanese values and morals. My parents were very strict about that. So like aisatsu toka, the way you speak to people, my parents were quite strict about. So I think that's a very Japanese side of me. I'm very careful about how I talk to people and how polite I am. But I think the American side of me is I'm quite opinionated and I'm not afraid to speak my mind when the time is right. And in a way that's polite, but that's definitely an American side of me, is I feel like I have more open about how I feel. And I'm very open about expressing how I feel as well.
A lot of Japanese people, including myself, sometimes have face the situation where we can't open ourselves because of whatever, invisible social pressures. Do you have any opinions on it?
Yeah, I think that I'm definitely more expressive in English, so I'm very grateful that we're doing this in English. I think it feels more natural because I'm more used to hearing in English people expressing themselves, whereas here I don't hear it as often. So sometimes I do feel less maybe confident to say what I want to say. But to me, it's just important to tell people how I feel because I feel like that way it gives them an opportunity to tell me how they feel or to open up to me more. I have found that if I don't open up to people, then they won't open up to me here. So I try to make an effort to express how I feel in hopes that it'll break down the wall between me and the person in front of me for them to open up. Because I do feel a lot more walls here than I did back in New York, that's for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just your insights, what do you think the walls come from?
Society. I think societal pressure here is very strong. Everybody's quiet here. Everybody acts a certain way, like there's a very set standard to how to behave in public here, which I think is a beautiful thing. It's part of what makes this country so efficient and clean and all of that. But I think that definitely creates a big wall for people to be able to express themselves.
May I ask what you're up to in Tokyo?
In Tokyo, in New York, I was a professional dancer and commercial model and did a little bit of acting. And here in Tokyo, I'm a singer-songwriter and performer and hopeful actress.
Can I call it entertainment industry?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
How is it like to be in a Japanese entertainment industry as someone that is non-Japanese but looks like a Japanese person?
It's totally different. I think, for example, my first summer here, my agent told me I was banned from tanning. I was not allowed to be under the sun. And my whole life in New York, I loved being in the sun. I loved going to the beach and baking. And here I bought a sun umbrella, which I know is very normal here, but for me, growing up overseas, I was like, oh man, I've really become Japanese. So that's a big difference. And I think also because I grew up overseas, I have, even if I have the same blood and I might look a little similar to the girls here, I think I carry myself a little bit differently, and the way that I do my makeup is different and the way that I dress is different. So I have had to try to assimilate more so that people will look at me and consider me without losing who I am as a person. So that's been a really interesting challenge. Yeah.
Why did your management ban you from getting tanned?
To be fair, they weren't like, you have to be light skinned. But my manager said to me, if you want to book jobs in Japan, you can't be that tan. Which I think is unfortunate, but there is still a very set beauty standard, especially in, I think, East Asia, that, that white, milky skin is what people sort of admire and aspire to have. So, yeah, he was like, if you want to, you can tan, but if you want to book work, you're banned from tanning.
Is there any other restrictions you got told?
Not too much, I think, but I have noticed that the industry here, like the girls are very skinny. It wasn't a restriction placed on me necessarily, but I do feel that sort of pressure. Like you're either put into the bracket of like a thick girl or you're super skinny. Like I feel like there's not so much in between. And yeah, they just kind of place you in brackets like that, which I think is unfortunate. Like it's not just like beautiful woman. It's has to be like, oh, she's like the heavy type or she's like the idle skinny type. So that's something I feel is different in the West. Like there's a little bit more of representation of all different types of body sizes, all different types of colors and things like that.
Maybe this question is going to lead to the same answers. You can maybe also wrap it up. What are the beauty standards of Japan, of Japanese entertainment industry?
Oh, well, one thing I found really interesting is people are always like, "Kao chisai ne," which is like it's a big compliment here to be told that you have a small face. But I had never heard that used as a compliment in the West, so that was really interesting to me at first. I thought like it was just a statement, like a fact. So I feel like having a small face is a big beauty standard here. And then I see a lot of like, people get surgery for big eyes or small nose, so maybe that's the beauty standard, and obviously lighter skin. I feel like those are some of the main things that people say are the beauty standards here. My hope is that, eventually East Asia, Japan can sort of find beauty in other, things that are not the set beauty standard. But yeah, I think like the major difference I found in the entertainment industry in Japan and in the West is where they place value in people. So I was actually speaking to a senior producer at a major record label here, and I was like, okay, tell me this. Out of these three things, what are the priorities in the Japanese industry? Is it appearance, including age and like physical appearance? Is it skill level? Or is it personality, like your manners and how you treat people? And he was like, to be honest, in the Japanese industry, like people will mostly look at appearance and age especially, and then they'll look at your personality and your manners and how you like behave on set or treat people, and then it's skill or talent, which I found really interesting because I feel like in the West, it's the total opposite. Like if you are really skilled at what you do, you can be a total diva, or you can be any shape, any, height, skin color, and if you're really good, you'll get booked. And then next would come appearance. Like obviously the entertainment industry is very vain. And last is your personality or manners, like people will be late to set or they'll be total divas on set, but if you're really good at what you do, you get booked and you can work. So that I found was a very big difference in the two industries, at least from my experience.
Okay, other than that conversation you had with the senior manager, have you experienced something personally, some moments where you had to realize or had to become flexible in mind and stuff?
Well, this is a very practical thing, but like in terms of how you behave on set or your mannerisms, I remember one time for a shoot, we were all put up in a hotel, and the meeting time was 5:15 a.m. in the lobby. I was like, okay, great. I woke up at like 3:45, 4. did all my skincare, got myself ready, and I went down to the lobby at like 5:05 maybe, and I was like, oh, I have so much time, I'm gonna be early, and the elevator doors opened, and everybody turned, like the whole cast and crew were already there, and they all turned to me, and they were like, okay, she's here, let's go. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm late, and I was like, wait, no, I'm early, but I realized like everybody was there super early, so if you're not like early, you're late here. But that to me, I realized like the professionals here and the people who work, like they're early, they're like, they say hello to everybody in the morning. And so that kind of mannerism is very important here. And yeah, I think like the way that you speak to people, like keigo and stuff, is super important. So in the beginning, I didn't really speak Japanese that well. And I think without intending to, I definitely offended some people because I wasn't using super, proper keigo to them. So that was something I really had to learn.
How professional do you feel in Japanese right now?
I feel pretty good, I think. Enough to be able to work here and live here and have no issues. I wouldn't say my Japanese is perfect, but I think that it's good enough.
All right.
That I'm confident in it,
Good.
I think.
Do you have any favorite Japanese word?
I do actually. One of my favorites is ichigo ichie, which is like, it's like Japanese YOLO, but a little bit classier. But it sort of means like once in a lifetime, one meeting. So like you have this moment one time where you're meeting these people for this moment in time, and to really treasure that moment because it might only happen once. So yeah, it's Japanese YOLO.
All right, Riho, thanks for your time.
Thank you so much.
How did you like it?
I hope I said something decent. But no, this is super fun, and I love talking about the differences between Japan and the West, and
Nice.
hopefully, someday there will be less differences.